Dude, what's going on?
Hey, Kris. Man, I'm terrified. I got some bad credit history, credit debt.
Does your wife know?
No.
Did you know that 1 in 4 people would rather go to the dentist than have their spouse find out about their credit card debt? But today's video is actually about why I love debt, how debt can be an amazing thing. Debt can even be weaponized to get you out of really bad debt.
One shot, now the future is yours. Go! I'm turning dreams into reality. Yeah, it's one shot, now the future is yours. Go!
Man, today is going to be interesting. You are either going to love this video or you're going to hate it, as in hate me, because today we're talking about why you should go into debt. And that sounds super controversial, but I mean it. If I had a choice today of going into $10 more million of debt like that, I would do it in a heartbeat. In fact, let me show you. This is my credit card, one of my favorite buddies. This credit card I rack up and use like nobody else. So why is it that I love debt so much? Let's find out. Make no mistake, debt is a touchy subject. Like this last year, I made a couple of videos about why you should never get out of debt by paying off your house. And I gotta tell you, the haters, they are real, they're alive, and they come out. So debt is this like classified, protected class, like it's a sacred cow, like
the sacred cows. Of course it's the sacred cows. It has to be the sacred cows.
Debt is bad, we all have to agree, and if anyone says otherwise, let's shoot them. Let's talk about U.S. household debt balances. Carrying some sort of debt has kind of become a way of life for the average American. According to the Federal Reserve, the total household debt rose by $333 billion in the first quarter of 2021 to reach a staggering total of $15.6 trillion. You know, we're constantly pointing fingers at the government and saying, how dare you put us trillions of dollars in debt? But guess what? We, the people, we're living the exact same life. We are so crazy in debt. We're accustomed to it. We're kind of sensitive to it. Will we ever get a handle on it? And does that really mean that it's bad? Or is there a part of it that actually could be good?
I'm not going to be the good guy. I'm going to be the great guy.
Here are 2 of my favorite credit cards. For business, I use my Platinum American Express. I also use my Cabela's card, which gives me like 5% back on all purchases throughout the year. And you know what? We're terrified of credit card debt because often it's associated with high interest rates. For example, like, oh, I'm paying 12%, I'm paying 20%, I'm paying 23%. And as afraid of that type of interest rate as we are, we're just as afraid of paying too much interest on something like a house. Because remember, a house is a really big object, often hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so we're hyper interest rate conscious. Check this out. We are sitting at historic low interest rates, but it hasn't always been that way. Mortgage rates have fluctuated from a record high of 18.45% in October 1981 to a record low of 2.68% in December of 2021. Although mortgage rates are starting to climb as of April 2022 to 5.3%, it's still very low, historically low even. In fact, I remember back before the Great Recession what it was like to buy real estate at 6, 7, and 8%, and I could make a grundle of money. I made that work all day long. But most people, they're thinking, wait a second, I'm debt averse, debt is bad, credit card debt is bad, and by the way, if rates go up, don't buy a house. Can you imagine locking in 5.3%? It's crazy, it has so much money. That's like $5,000 on every $100,000. It's insane. But is it really? Truth bomb. Truth is, there are actually 2 types of debt. The first one is, of course, a bad debt. That's the debt that we are familiar with. Basically, if you're borrowing money to purchase a depreciating asset, meaning I buy something that loses value the moment I bought it, and if you're doing that for the sole purpose of consumption, that is definitely considered a bad debt. Examples would be, well, I'm buying things on credit cards that I can't really afford, but I can carry a balance and I can cover the minimum payment. Maybe in the future, I'll get them paid off. Or payday loans, cars, right? These things, the moment you drive it off the lot, you lose like 20 whatever percent of its value. Clothes and consumables. Come on, be honest. Do you have an Amazon addiction? Like, do you like to go shopping? Are you a shopping addict? Bottom line is, if we get in the habit of consume, and buy, and we don't have the money for it, so what we do is we put it on credit, that is most definitely a bad debt. But I'm going to give you a different reason why. It's a bad debt because it doesn't make you money. What if there was a kind of debt, however, that did? That might go from bad to good. There's no way, Kris Krohn, you can talk yourself out of this one. You started the video by saying credit card debt is good. You're stupid.
Stupid!
No, actually, I'm really, really smart. Check it out. There is such a thing as good debt. Good debt is often exemplified in the old adage, it takes money to make money. Debt is good and necessary if the debt you take on helps you generate income and build your net worth. For example, a business loan. Well, the business makes money. So if the business needs money, will you give it some money if it makes a whole lot more? As in, here we go. Here's a $10,000 loan. And if my business can get it, it'll make 100,000 real dollars. Let me ask you, would you trade 10 grand for 100 grand? There's a really good chance that if you're a subscriber, you know that I've transacted over $1 billion worth of real estate. And I love debt. And real estate is just one type of debt. For example, I love to buy investment properties. Think about it. I put some of the money up. The bank picks up the majority of the money. That means that I go into debt with the bank, but then I have a renter that leases the home, leaves me with a positive cash flow. I get tax benefits. The home goes up in value. I sell it a decade later, and if I make over $100,000 after paying all of my expenses, I'm going to the bank saying, thank you for letting me go into debt. Well, guess what? Today, the word of the day is arbitrage, and it is the secret of delineating a bad debt from a good debt. Arbitrage is an investment strategy in which the borrower receives money at a lower interest rate and then invests that same money for a higher return rate and profits on the difference. For example, in this country right now, if you have bought a home in the last few years, chances are its value has increased. What you maybe paid $250,000 for might now be worth $350,000, $400,000. So let's go with that example. You have a home, it is worth $400,000. V stands for value. What you owe on it, that's what the O stands for, is let's call it $200,000. In other words, you have a home that is half paid off. You watch this video, not really sure if what I said is true, so you go to your credit union and you say, hey, can I get a home equity line of credit? And the bank's like, sure, we'll give it to you for free. And you're like, what? Yeah, they said, we'll go up to 80% of the value. Your home's worth $400,000, we'll give you up to $320,000. And you're like, well, that's cool because I only owe $200,000. So if the bank will allow me to borrow up to $320,000 and what I owe is $200,000, the difference there is $120,000. Now, not so fast. Kris, this is like a credit card that is tied to my house and the equity that's in it. It's secured by the equity in my house. As banks love lending on real estate, but come on. I wasn't born yesterday. I'm not a sucker. If I take out all $120,000 of equity from my home, I'm going to owe the bank some money. And you'd be right. You might be borrowing this money, let's say, at 5%. And that might cost you, let's call it, $600 a month. Okay, so you're like, I knew it. If I borrow the $120,000, it's going to cost me $600. That's debt. Well, remember, you also have 120 grand. What can you do with it? Can I give you some ideas? That $120,000, for example, could be used to buy a franchise. Call it a business. And let's say that that business produces $100,000 a year, and that's absentee owner status. That means someone else runs it, operates it, and you don't need to. Well, don't forget, you have a $600 a month payment. And so let's do some math here. So I take $600 a month. That is my cost on this money. I'm going to times it by 12 months. Well, that is $7,200 a year. That's what the cost of this debt is. But what makes it a good debt? Well, that $120,000 is now producing, let's call it, $100,000 a year. The cost is $7,200 a year. What you make is $100,000. So after you pay that expense, guess what's left over? You basically have $92,800 left over. Just kind of curious. If you went into debt and that debt made you almost $100,000 extra a year, would you do it? Now, mind you, I didn't start with a silver spoon in my mouth. When I was young, I started with debt, thousands of dollars. In fact, it was close to about $10,000. I freaked out, and it was going to take me years to get myself out of debt. So instead, what I did is I saved up $5,000. Now, I could apply that to my debt, and it took me 14 months to actually build up that money. But what I did instead is I bought a house. And the reason why I bought it is because instead of my wife and I throwing $400 a month away renting, we could actually buy a house, we could rent out the basement, and the basement would cover our entire mortgage. In essence, the $400 that we were spending every month on rent, we would stop wasting it and we would start living for free. Well, what could I do with an extra $400 a month? Simple, I could pay off my credit card debt even faster. A year later, that house had gone up in value, so I got a home equity line of credit. The bank gave me enough money that I could basically borrow from the house, go into debt, and buy another house. That house paid me another $600 a month after all expenses, which was way more than the money that I was borrowing. Now I'm living for free. Now I have an extra $600 a month. I'm saving $400 on what I was previously renting. Within 3 months, my wife and I, we were entirely out of debt. So I have used positive debt to eliminate bad debts. Turns out that is a faster way to honor the time that you've been given in this life, just as long as you know how to do it the right way. Well, check this out. If you have equity sitting in a home, or if you've been piling money into a 401k or an IRA, or maybe you've got money sitting in crypto, let me ask you, are any of those investments making you money? Your 401k doesn't pay you every month. Your IRA does not pay you every month. Your stock portfolio, your crypto portfolio doesn't pay you anything. Even the house that you have equity in doesn't pay you anything. We are trained to put our money in places that give us nothing. But in my world, I need a positive arbitrage and I expect to be paid. That's how I live the lifestyle that I do. If you want to learn how to do that and you've got some money sitting in 401ks, IRAs, or equity, and you want to learn how to put that to use in terms of positive arbitrage, and you want to partner with an expert that knows what they're doing, check it out. There is a link below. There's an opportunity for you to get with me and my team, and let me show you the damage that we could do in tearing it up. Literally $50,000 is all it takes to literally over time turn that into millions of dollars through the game of positive arbitrage. So as you think of your financial future, ask yourself, are you doing okay with more or less a single stream of income that comes in from a job where you're trading all your time, your most valuable asset, for a paycheck? You've got to find a way to break through financially. And if you want to break through and you want to break free, you got to do things different. That game is called investing. Not going into debt, but going into good debt, the kind of debt that makes you money. Click the link. Let me prove it. Good debt is just the beginning of our journey together. You've got to start, however, doing what wealthy people do. You model the heck out of them. And it turns out that wealthy people are doing 5 very specific things. If you want to know what those 5 things are that will make you a lot more money than just knowing how to go properly into debt, check out this video right here. Let me show you. That they'd rather go to a dentist. Did you know that 1 in 4 people would rather allow a stranger to go through their phone and read their texts than actually look at their... So you're listening, you're not alone. I get it. But I got to tell you that I should say something inspiring right now. Dude. I should pick one stat, not 2.